So people, the highly anticipated decision or judgment from the Privy Council is finally in, and VYBZ Kartel and his co-defendant finally know where they stand, if them walk or if them stay in the big yard, which they would not want. Now when the lawyers for the defendant spoke, they said that they are kind of expecting the judges to rule one of two ways, either retrial or they are set free. What they definitely did not want is for the guilty verdict to remain. So therefore, them pretty much overcome the guilty. So therefore, now they will get a second chance on life, on career, and everything. Now you and I know that what they wanted most of all is to be cleared of everything, not to go back through any sorts of retrial, to be cleared as free persons to live in society and do whatever they so choose, with nothing, no sorts of burden hanging over their heads. The guilty verdict definitely would give them that. If it comes, or when it comes to the retrial, then them know, say, listen, we are not scot-free as yet. However, we get a next second chance at life, second chance at career, because then at least we know that we did not get the worst option, which would have been the guilty verdict remains. So therefore, both cases, they would have been happy. However, the guilty or the not guilty would be the better of the two. So therefore, you heard what the court says. You heard what the judgment, the determination by the courts. Now, people, like I said, a man or a person should not be condemned until he has exhausted all of his appeals, meaning the initial trial, meaning the appeal, and now the final verdict. What led to this decision by the Privy Council? A lot of prosecutorial misconduct, a lot of investigative misconduct, and judges who are supposed to know better, even making errors that should not have been made. Because people, like I said, this case was never about VYBZ Kartel being guilty or not. This case was about if these procedures were actually followed as it pertains to this court, this justice system, giving people what they're supposed to deserve. So people, at the end of the day, who should we blame? Who will be blamed? Who fumbled, who dropped the ball, who did not do exactly what they were supposed to do and cause the decision that we see right here? If you ask 100 people, I am sure that it is going to be mixed that yes, this man was definitely guilty, or these persons were definitely guilty without a shadow of a doubt. Some people are going to say no. A lot of people would be biased. So therefore, there were always pros and cons to everything. But at the end of the day, like I said, if you make your bed, you usually lie in it. Do not lose a case because you fumbled it, because of misconduct, because of the prosecutor, because of the investigators, or even worse, the judge. Lose the case because the evidence was not there. Do not fumble the ball. Do not drop the ball whenever you have persons that you want to get rid of out of society. So therefore, the DPP, the justice system, the judge, the jury, they had an obligation to make sure that justice was served. And people, in this case, we cannot blame the jury because the jury did what they were supposed to do. However, the jury was guided by a judge. Everybody in this case, meaning the judge, meaning the prosecutor, meaning the defense, saw exactly what was going on. The only ignorant set that was there was the jury, because everybody should have known the protocols and procedure. For a case like this, if at 12 people without any sorts of controversy, without any sorts of question sign on their name. If that was not the case, it was going to be grounds for appeal. It was going to be dismissal. It was going to be retrial. And people so said, so done. So what this means for the victim, meaning Lizard, what this means for the family of the victim, what this means from most Jamaicans that want justice and think that justice was not served, is that more than likely they won't get a chance to redeem any sorts of vindication, because more than likely, either way, like I said, it would go, whether it was not guilty or whether it was going to be retrial. Chances are they were going to get the same sorts of result based on what took place on people in most trial. Most sorts of criminal incidents. After 48 hours, there's a show that is called 48 Hours on the network. After 48 hours, the evidence, the chances of beating this case or the chances of getting any sorts of conviction is greatly diminished. We are speaking about 11 years after. So therefore, whether it was going to go to some sorts of retrial, are you going to get those same witnesses? Are these witnesses going to be willing to go through the same sorts of stuff? Go through some sorts of witness protection program, especially when they see what has happened to many persons like themselves. Is the DPP or was the DPP going to spend the money from the purse of the Jamaican public once again to go through something when she had a chance at the cherry and she pretty much fumbled the ball based on what the judge did, based on what the investigators did, based on what the DPP's office did. They are supposed to be working synchronized, meaning the judge, even though he is supposed to be independent, but the justice system consists of the DPP's office, consists of the judge, consists of the investigators. They are supposed to be in one accord. They are not supposed to fumble the ball based on some sorts of misconduct. So therefore, them drop the ball big time. What this means for the persons that don't like VYBZ Kartel and people justifiably so. Because let's face it, there has been a whole bunch of negativity circulating over the media. He has been public enemy numero uno as it pertains to dancehall artists. We've heard his own people that was on his label complain about him being very unfair, about ABUSE, about him sleeping with all sorts of people that are in the group, meaning the females, posting out all sorts of videos, persons outside of the music talking about interactions that they've had with him that was not very nice. So people, let's face it, there was a whole lot of controversy on his name. So therefore, whenever this case came up and they heard that Lizard, based on the evidence that was put forward by the prosecution, most persons would have said that if him beat this, it is not because he is innocent. It is because of some sorts of misconduct, some sorts of technicality, and people, it is obvious that that is the case in this case. So therefore, the people, the fans that love him, the Gaza people, his own family members, they are going to be elated. And even worse, the family members of the victim, meaning Mr. Lizard Williams, they are going to be crushed. After waiting in excess of a decade for some sorts of justice, the judgment that was passed is not the judgment that they wanted or expected or thought was just. For this man, for these co-defendants, like I said, them get a next chance. Them pretty much bump the system. Them pretty much buck the system. Based on what most persons are going to say, because people, if you go to a trial and the majority of the jury rule that you are guilty, if you go to the Court of Appeal and the Court of Appeal rule that you are guilty, or they are going to stay with the guilty verdict, and then you go to this and then you beat it, You should consider yourself lucky, not based on the fact that you beat it because the evidence was not there, based on the fact that you beat it because of some sorts of technicality, some sorts of misconduct. You should definitely consider yourself very, very lucky and that you got a next lease upon life. So what this is going to speak is volume about the system in Jamaica as it pertains to high-profile cases. Because we've seen in many instances in high-profile cases, especially people in the upper hierarchy in a society, them seem to beat it, them seem to have some sort of different type of justice for them versus that of the poor, of the average Joe or the average Jane. So therefore, the prosecutor is going to have to go back to the drawing boards, revamp, rewind, and come again. And hopefully, they won't make the same mistake. Hopefully, what should have been obvious will be realized in any other trial that they might get like this. Hopefully, no other sorts of trial like this will exist. However, this is Jamaica. Hope for the best and expect the worst. So people, at the end of the day, these people should consider themselves lucky because they pretty much almost bite a bullet. And that is what happened as it pertains to Jamaicans that are there for justice, as it pertains to the family, as it pertains to Lizard, as it pertains to the DPP's office. They will have to stomach this one. It is going to hurt them very badly. So therefore, at the end of the day, two sides to the spectrum, the people that are pro, the people that are con. The people that are pro-Vice Cartel, they are going to be happy, they are going to be elated, because sometimes a lot of persons, they are not thinking about justice, they are thinking about fame, they are thinking about the artists, they are thinking about the music. So therefore, they have that as their priority. That means that the way that they think is kind of warped. At the end of the day, people, like I said, this could have easily been avoided from the start. Even though it turned out good, whether it is the best or the better choice for these people. These people, especially VYBZ Kartel, he had a blooming career. He was a top dancehall artist. He was making a whole bunch of money legitimately. But because of this badness culture, he decided he was going to make the hype get to him. He was going to try to play some sorts of badman or Don role. So therefore, because some sorts of shoes GUN was missing, him decided he wanted to get justice for it. He was missing the big picture because he was able to make millions, not Jamaican dollar, US dollar. If he had been out, the amount of money that he lost because our amount of time that he lost and freedom that he lost because of some sorts of shoes, he could have made back millions. So therefore, he was penny-wise and pound-foolish, and it almost came and haunted him. Well, it haunted him for a couple of years, and people, most persons are going to say, well, at least him get some time. Even though he did not get the time, the 35 years before he was eligible for parole, or the others 25, 15, or 20, before they were actually eligible for parole. So people, at the end of the day, I would not consider it as any sort of justice. I would consider it to be very, very tragic. At the end of the day, one person lost their life. At the end of the day, 4 or 5 other persons were locked up pretty much for them lifestyle. And people, if you did wrong, like I said, my disclaimer before I proceed, because I know persons like to take what I say out of context. If you did a deed and they're deemed to be guilty, you should get the time, you should get the maximum time allowed under the law. So therefore, any sort of capital crime, capital punishment, without a shadow of a doubt. So therefore, people, at the end of the day, I would not consider it any sort of justice. But people, like I said, always, it depends on who you ask. What side of the fence you sit, whether you are for justice or you are for fame. As it pertains to Jamaica, it seems as if most people chose the side of fame instead of justice. Sad to say, this is tragic. Either way it went. Point blank and period. So anyways, people, Thanks once again for checking out my video. If you appreciate videos like these, please show your appreciation by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing to my channel. That is how YouTube promotes videos like these to like-minded, sensible persons like yourself. And last but not least, please subscribe to my next channel. It is called Jamaica Dancehall Source. I'll be pinning the link to that channel in the description of this video. Bless up.